morning. Prof, good morning, and I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
I'm very well. Now, Prof, we're talking about tackling poverty the right way in Nigeria. Let's take the next few minutes to take a look at it. I read your piece, which you wrote in 2001. You know, I read it
Yes.
sometimes ago, and I would like you to chronicle for me an overview of poverty in Nigeria. Because when I wrote your piece, when I read your piece, I think 32 pages, you were able to tell us succinctly how we got there as at 2001. So just give me 1 minute overview of why you think there's still widespread poverty in Nigeria.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the framework for poverty reduction, poverty eradication is not there. And that framework is broad economic growth. And not just economic growth, inclusive growth. That is to say, growth which permits poor people to be part of the growth process, and then the outputs of growth are also shared by poor people. So that framework is not there. You will find that over the years and for quite some time now, economic growth of the country has been very, very poor. Over the last 10 years or 12 years or so, let's say from 2014 to 2023, the economic growth rate in Nigeria averaged 1.8. What is generally agreed is that a country like Nigeria needs 7 to 8% growth rate per annum to be able to make a dent on poverty. And so you'll find a situation whereby the poverty rate in Nigeria is very high, the economic growth rate is very low and fragile.
Okay, Prof.
And it's not inclusive, yes.
Okay, Prof, let me halt you there and just come in, because you said for us to reduce poverty in the country that we must grow at about 7 to 8%. That's your own postulation.
Yes.
But let me also remind you that there was a time in this country we were growing averagely 7% during President Jonathan's period. Can you remember that time? That's before 2014. Yes, we were growing at averagely at 7%. When Olusegun Aganga was the minister, I think, of finance at that time and all of that, then you had Okonjo-Iweala coming in then. We had a growth rate of 7% in this country. But that time we were also battling with what they call jobless growth. We also had poverty at that point. So why hasn't that approach worked too? An approach of broad-based economic growth?
You are very correct, Nancy. What it means is that indeed there was no broad-based economic growth. Otherwise, there will not be huge unemployment at the same time that the economy is growing fast. If the economy is growing fast and there is wide participation by people, including the poor, then the output of growth will be shared, among everybody. In other words, the poor, the vulnerable, the disadvantaged would have a feel of the economic growth. But that has not been the case in Nigeria because of high level of inequality, which persists, in Nigeria. So the growth has not been broad-based, and it has not been inclusive. A large proportion of Nigerians are left out of the growth process through unemployment. They have nothing to do, and they are able and willing to work. And so it's not broad-based. It's not inclusive. That's one major reason why we have what we have.
Now, Prof, if you take a look at the various poverty alleviation programs over the years, we've had a lot of them. Quite notable to talk about is the poverty alleviation program. We also have, I think that was done, I think in 1994. Then you saw programs that were established by government. President Obasanjo established the UB at that time in terms of education. There's a linkage between education and poverty. You have NAPEP at that time. Now we have the social investment programs, of course, which the president has said, guys, just hold on a bit, let's investigate this. Why do you think that these various government targeted programs have not worked in alleviating, in reducing poverty actually? Because the more government programs we have, the more people are poor in the country.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. The social investment program is part of the general strategy of safety nets, targeted at the poor. That is to say, such safety nets are designed to meet the needs of members of the population who are not able to participate directly, in the growth process or production process. Those who are able to participate, they are willing to work. If they are employed, good employment, and they are earning income, and there is a fair distribution of income, in the country, then definitely the widespread, poverty that we have, would be, dented, in a way. But that has not been, the case. And what is happening is that succeeding governments have tended to see safety nets or social investment programs as what can solve the poverty problem. No, definitely not. Social investment programs will help those who are not in a position to work. Pensioners who don't have anything, many vulnerable people, women, children, and so on. That's what social investment programs, will tackle. All the other categories of Nigerians who are in a position to work, and if they can be employed, in industries, agriculture, social services, and so on, and they are earning meaningful income, poverty will reduce. So we cannot use social investment program to address the poverty problem in Nigeria. There are ad hoc programs, which cannot really redress, poverty. It's just to alleviate, the poverty conditions of the categories of people that benefit, from social investment program. That's also a major problem with most of the poverty reduction alleviation programs that have been implemented over the years. The government started to see them as something that will, reduce poverty or cure poverty in the country. Whereas they should complement the strategy of broad-based or robust economic growth that is inclusive. That is to say, it includes all Nigerians that are able and willing to work, and they work, and then they all participate in generating the growth, and then they all participate in sharing the fruits of growth. But you can agree with me that that's not the case in Nigeria.
Okay.
A few people, corner the wealth of the country, to themselves, and others are left, in the dark, as it were.
Okay, Prof. Lastly, I would like
Yes.
to get your view on what is currently happening at the Ministry of Poverty and Humanitarian Affairs. What do you
Yes.
think? There are some people that have actually called for a scrap of that ministry, that it hasn't, it hasn't lived up to expectation. The two ministers right now
Yeah.
are up for investigation. What do you really
Yeah.
think about this?
Well, the concept is not a bad one. You see, it is the human being that is the problem. Human being saddled with the responsibility of managing the affairs of the ministry. And so, I will say that ideally, conceptually, there is no harm, no problem in having the ministry. And if it's in a position to work in line with what is expected to make social safety nets to work very well, then, there will be no problem. I think the issue with them is that there is no proper targeting. Good governance of the program is not there, and there are allegations of corruption, lack of social responsibility, accountability in that ministry. If you have good individuals, they'll be able to target the poor, the real poor, who cannot directly be involved in production of goods and services and earn
Prof, what do
income.
you mean by a good individual? What do you mean by good? Because
No,
a good individual can
individuals,
also not be competent and cannot also not have good governance practices. There are two different things. A good individual will be going to church every Sunday, going to worship God, or going to the mosque every Friday, praying 5 times a day. That person is a good individual. Is it that kind of good that we need in terms of managing poor people's money?
no, competent people with integrity. That's what I mean.
Okay.
Yes, you can have Nigerians who are well skilled, they are good technocrats, and they have high integrity. They can easily manage such programs. But otherwise, we can't find them. If the government does not wish to use them, then it can scrap the ministry,
Okay.
as it were.
Okay, thank you very much,
Yeah.
Prof, for your insights this morning. Those short, but at least we've gotten a few things from you. Thank you very much, Prof, and I'll speak
Thank you
with
very
you
much.
soon. Thank you.